In this video, I'm going to talk about perfectionism and little tips and tricks to try and remove some of those perfectionism tendencies if that's something that you're looking to do. Now, it's completely acceptable if you feel like you're a perfectionist yourself, but it's working for you and you have no desire to kind of remove anything at all. This video is more aimed at those they can see it and they feel like it's been a bit detrimental to certain aspects of their life, and it's just something that you're perhaps looking to remove or have a better control over. This video is more suited to that scenario. Some examples often see of people thinking they're perfectionism or a perfectionism tendency is things like I need this piece of work to be perfect, or you're finding yourself procrastinating because there's a feeling that it needs to be perfect. Like I need things to go exactly as planned, or if this event that I'm planning doesn't go as perfectly as planned, I'm going to be angry, I'm going to be annoyed, and or things like I want people to act and say and do things the way that I want them to help validate me, as an example. Otherwise, I get angry, I get agitated, or even things like sport and careers. Like I also need this performance to be perfect, and I find the reasoning for that, and it's just from my own observations and my own past experiences, and certainly that from some of my clients, is I think a lot of these stem from a past event, whether it's young adulthood, childhood. I know there's kind of that cliche where people go, "Oh, it's obviously something that happened to me as a kid." Well, a lot of times that's the truth. It's just you're unaware to see of what specific events started that kind of ball rolling as such, and whether it's through sometimes programming of just inadequacy, and it's not something that you've done on purpose, it's just something that's just kind of subconsciously brought itself into your way of thinking. Maybe stuff like because you failed a test and there was a bad reaction to that, or you didn't behave like you were supposed to in a certain environment, or whether it's at home or in class or at work, things like that, or you felt tasks had to be completed in a specific way to gain acceptance, recognition, validation, whether that's from family, teachers, bosses, friends, and it's not always their fault. That's based on their programming, their same upbringing, and the same loop, the same pattern just keeps coming back. And I find that's how the feeling starts. Is once that's then generated, it's almost like that ingrains itself into your subconscious. Like, okay, well, I had that reaction from failing something, from not doing something as I was expected. That then becomes automatically sort of the default response to everything is just the feeling that, okay, well, I got that wrong, so now it needs to be perfect in order to gain that validation, that respect, and things like that. And I think the problem is in later in life that starts naturally working its way into your own belief system, hence where the potential perfectionism tendency is coming from. And therefore you start wanting people to behave the way that you do. A lot of times you require those needs to be and desires to be met perfectly in order for you to then feel okay, that then you start feeling stressed because everything needs to be perfect, and if you're not winning, perhaps you're not feeling good enough. It's just these overriding feelings that coming from a moment in your past that now have just integrated themselves just into your subconscious way of thinking that, okay, everything needs to be perfect in order to get the response for me to feel okay. And I find that's where a lot of things are driving from. And again, just from my own personal experiences and things that I've observed as well. And some of the mindset shifts and considerations that you can try and make with this that you may find useful is just noticing how you are with others, how you are with family, like friends, partners, colleagues, and then asking yourself, well, what behaviours am I expecting from them? And what if they're not met? What are my triggers if they're not met? Why are they triggering me? And can I let go of the expectations if they're not met? And those are the kind of things to be aware of and ask yourselves if things like that seem to keep cropping up. Because if they are, it's things that it's telling you that perhaps areas where you're not free, that they just need a bit of exploration. And a lot of times asking yourself, like, what is realistic? Are my expectations too high that it's just going to be impossible for someone or something to hit? And it's certainly going to keep going that way until you tell the person or explain in any kind of way what those expectations are. They're always going to feel like they're not going to be hit because they don't know how to hit them if your expectations are really, really high. And I think because of that as well, you have to ask yourselves, is it healthy to have these high expectations, these perfectionism tendencies through those expectations, where a lot of times surely you just want people to be themselves. You just want themselves to feel loved and appreciated for who they are. You don't want to feel the pressure of having them need to tick validation boxes. You don't want the pressure of ticking your own validation boxes. You wouldn't want people to expect you to change. So why would you then want other people to change to validate you for that example? Again, just little things where, is it healthy that my current way of thinking is going along these lines? And a lot of times a good question to kind of really bring on a good kind of mindset and thought pattern is, well, what would I do if a friend came to me with this? What advice would I give to a friend through this? And that can be a real eye-opening experience, because a lot of times when you're speaking to a friend, you'll often ask yourself, is this kind of what I'm like? And I think then that gives an awakening to, oh, well, maybe there's something that's in me that I need to work on in regards to kind of my high expectations and sort of me have everything wanting to be perfect. And if that's so, like, what can I do to change things? I mean, it's not always a case of lowering your expectations, but it's having an understanding of why they're triggering you. Like, why does everything need to be perfect for you to feel okay? And I think that's a good starting point, is to, when you have, like, trying to gain those understandings, is having then a plan in place to things that you can do to kind of counteract when those, like, expectations aren't being met and things like that. And whether it's things like, can I accept this person for who they are and not who I want them to be and how I want them to react, and can I accept this person that they're just trying their best? And these are kind of things to ask yourself amongst yourself and what you see of other people, with like friendships and relationships and within family and in those kind of environments, and what response and love would I want to receive in those situations? And that's a good way of asking yourself, similar to how you'd give advice to a friend, is if I'm in this situation, would it be fair for people to really have these high expectations on me, and then if I don't meet them, I'm being punished for it? Because then that's forcing you to change into something that you don't want to be, something you're not, and you wouldn't, of course, want that on anyone else. And that's why it's also useful, again, like taking that step as almost like an outsider to view things from a kind of a neutral standpoint. And when you look at things like a procrastination tendency as well, because you're looking for things to be perfect, like beneath the need to be perfect, what is it about it that's stressing you out? Like, I feel a lot of things with procrastination, whether it's because you don't have the knowledge for something, that it's naturally stressing you out, and because it's stressing you out, you don't want to get started, you keep putting it off. And a lot of good techniques to have with that is, well, how can I change that and break it down into something that's small and achievable? A lot of times, just by having that feeling that you're achieving something is a really massive help and helps build momentum. And by making it small and achievable, it makes the tasks very much, takes the overwhelm from it. They're not overwhelming, they're not bringing a sense of pressure on you that you just feel like you can't get any further, you can't progress, you can't start, for example. And I think when you have that, take the feeling of overwhelm away, and then you're allowed to start building momentum, then you can keep focus on the good things that can come from completing those tasks. While having that in mind, I find that's a good motivator as to having, well, what would be the benefit of me completing this small task? And that way, the building of momentum is just key to help try and eliminate the procrastination tendencies. It's not to say they're never going to go away. Like myself, like most people, still procrastinate to try and do something that we don't want to do. But by breaking things down, it certainly makes things more achievable and just removes some of the pressure from that as well, that you can at least get going. I don't know, I've experienced a lot of times that when I find the answer to something, I'm able then to move to the next step, and then the next step, and the next step. By that time, I've been able to complete a task that I've been looking to do that I've put off just through some kind of stressful fear, let's say. And even with things like sport is another good example of things looking to be perfect. A lot of times it's can I just, if things haven't gone well, can I just accept the outcome for what it is, and that I just tried the best that I can? Maybe things just perhaps you tried your best, but it wasn't the best for that day. It wasn't good enough for that day, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be good enough for the next day and the next day. Can I just let it go that today I just gave everything I had and it wasn't perhaps my day? And again, having that release and understanding, giving compassion and forgiveness to yourself is really useful to kind of help keep that passion and enjoyment you have for what it is that you're doing. And I think through the results that kind of these tips and tricks can hopefully give you, and certainly working through minimizing those perfectionist tendencies, find that you feel less stressed, you're less agitated, you're a little more calm, because you find it easier to let things go and understand them for what they are and accept them for what they are, and no need to react with them. You can just move with the flow as they are. Certainly when it comes to not expecting people to be living up to your high standard, can I let that go? Can I just go with the flow that people are who they are? I wouldn't want to change them, and I wouldn't want them to change me. And in regards to things like procrastination, you're reducing the procrastination tendencies because you're building confidence, because you've done those small achievable tasks, and you're backing yourself each time, that you can use it as a blueprint for when these triggers, these feelings come up again and you feel the need to procrastinate. And I think when you start working through these, you yourself and your identity starts changing, that you start being perhaps the person you wanted to be, because you're removing these procrastination tendencies, you're removing the need to be perfect, that your kind of true self is starting to come out, because you're not feeling so anxious, you're not feeling so pressured, and therefore the expectations aren't as high, so the anxieties aren't there. There's more love and acceptance for people and the way that things are. And I think, again, as I mentioned, that brings in the sense of freedom, because you're getting all this energy back that was wasted being spent on stuff that didn't serve you, that you begin to do more things for yourself, you begin to take things easier on yourself, you begin to sort of, again, be that person you've always wanted to be for yourself and for other people. And I think when you have more of that natural energy coming back your way, you just allow things to be a bit more creative and accept things for what they are, and for what they are and what they could be, and there's no judgment or holding on to it if things don't necessarily go your way in that moment. So I find there's a lot of freedom to be had just by bringing in these tips that just allow you to let things go easier. So hopefully this video is useful in finding ways to kind of reduce some of those perfectionism tendencies. There's always going to be a work in progress, because we're always going to have some kind of expectation. And it's not a bad thing, it's only becomes a bad thing if we start allowing it to affect our lives in a wrong way. So hopefully you found this useful. As usual, obviously reach out if it's stuff that you want to work on together, stuff that I've worked on with my clients before, and they found it really useful. Certainly using the boardroom technique, which is a video that is also on my channel, and the tool you can download from my website. And obviously, hit subscribe, where you get more videos of the same content around sort of mindset shifting, of things that can help you. So hopefully you found this useful.